Hello, everyone, and welcome to week two of Philosophy Friday. And this week, I wanted to talk about something which has been on my mind recently or over the last few months, and that's power. Not political power, not money, not status, but the kind of power you start thinking about when you feel overlooked, misread, or even slightly disrespected. Because I think a lot of people, especially at the stage of life I'm in, entering college, entering a new atmosphere, we start asking or we start evaluating some of the things that we've experienced or some of the social events or times that we felt, like I said, overlooked or misread. And you start asking yourself, I mean, how do I make sure that this never happens again? And that question can kind of take you down two very different paths. So, I'm first going to talk about the wrong definition of power. And the first real wrong definition is control. It's the idea that if you understand people well enough, you can influence them and position yourself and avoid being on the loose end of social dynamics. And that's where books kind of like, if you've ever heard of, or a lot of people have read the 48 Laws of Power. And to be fair, there is some value in books like that where they do teach awareness and they teach you not to reveal everything, understand incentives, and to pay attention to status. But those types of books are more suited for the business environment or for maybe in the workplace. And even so, it's quite a dark, uh, you know, how do I say, dubious kind of way of thinking. But the problem comes when uh, you start to internalize some of those things in your worldview, and you start to see every interaction as a game, and you try to think of everything as strategic, and you try to think that every conversation should be calculated. And yeah, you do become sharp, but you end up becoming guarded, and guarded people don't build real influence. And history has shown that on separate occasions. I want to focus on a book that was very popular around the time that the 48 Laws of Power kind of went viral on social media. And what I think is the best book I've ever read in my humble 18 years. And it's The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It's very basic, and I know I have a lot deeper in the iceberg to dig into, but so far, I'm on the last book of his series or the last book of the books compiled in the book, if that makes sense. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I really can kind of see his own journey through or what he's thinking while being the emperor. And when you read this book, you kind of see a completely different definition of power because Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, and yet he writes things like you have power over your mind and your mind only, not your outside events. And while for people that kind of have a negative worldview, you might think that that's a weakness, but more so, it's just a redefinition of what the word power means. The aim is not controlling other people. It's about you yourself not being controlled by your own anger, your own ego, your own approval, and your own fear. Because if someone can provoke you into reacting in a way that lets your anger, ego, approval, fear kind of take over, then that person essentially can control you. And let's be honest, the desire to control outcomes or even people usually doesn't come from a place of confidence. It comes from moments when you feel like you don't really see what is happening. Like I said at the start, times where you felt left out, misread, or just left behind. And your brain responds with next time I'll see everything, next time I'll be in control. And that's a natural reaction, but it is a trap of an untrained mind because trying to control everything leads to overthinking, distrust, and constant calculation. And ironically, it makes you less stable than you were before. So, what is real power? It isn't moving people like pawns, it's positioning yourself so you don't have to. Real power looks like self control, not reacting quickly, or not reacting spontaneously. You don't over explain yourself, you're comfortable with the silence that surrounds you, and you understand dynamics, but you're not consumed by them. You don't necessarily want to chase the influence, you want to become someone who's worth listening to, and it's a completely different energy. From the Aristotle angle, you look at Nicomachean ethics, and within that, he argues something really important, that the highest form of influence comes from character, not manipulation. It's people following who they trust. And trust doesn't come from strategy necessarily, it comes from consistency. So if your goal is long-term influence, leadership, respect, you don't want to build that by playing games, you build it by being stable. So here's where I've landed on this. It's not wrong to want power. It's not wrong to want awareness. It's not wrong to want to understand what's going on around you. But there are two paths. The first one would be control, manipulation, and constant strategy. Eventually, you're going to become consumed by your over analyzing or your ruminating of everything around you, and you're going to become a little bit too guarded. And on the other path is clarity, discipline, and self control, which will lead you towards better things generally. And it should keep you steady along that path. And if you think about it, the person who can't be shaken is the person that's in control. That's it for this week's Philosophy Friday. Next week, I might go into nihilism and the deeper question of whether life actually has meaning or if we have to create it ourselves. It'll probably go on for a couple of weeks, but I'm excited to be there. See you guys.